the Ethiopian church took all of this literature, which included literature that nobody considered scripture at the time, and they appear to have just been non-discretionary and included everything.
Most people believe the story of Jesus ends with a simple goodbye and a trip to heaven. But an old monk from the Ethiopian highlands says there is much more to the tale. Tucked away in a version of the Bible that has 15 more books than the standard one, there are secret teachings about the science of the Spirit and the coming end of the world.
This is a rare Ethiopian Orthodox Bible manuscript, handwritten in Ethiopia's sacred liturgical language, Ge'ez.
Hands down, this is the most controversial discovery in modern theology. Many are not seeing the truth here. But once you hear what was actually said during those 40 days, you won't look at faith the same way again. Forbidden Gospel of the Highlands. For starters, there is a place in the world where time seems to have stopped over 1,500 years ago. This place is the northern highlands of Ethiopia, a land of jagged peaks and deep valleys that reach down thousands of feet into the earth. Many are not seeing the truth here. But this landscape is not just beautiful, it is a fortress. This fortress has protected the most complete version of the story of Jesus ever known to man. While the rest of the world follows a Bible that was trimmed down by leaders in Rome and Greece, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church has held on to 81 separate books. Everyone's obsessed with finding lost gospels in the desert sands, but the reality is that these books have been sitting on wooden shelves in mountain monasteries since the 4th century. These texts were brought from Syria by monks who were fleeing from the reach of the Roman Empire. Because Ethiopia was never fully conquered, these books stayed exactly the same. They were never edited to fit a political agenda. This is a key detail because it means the information inside is raw and unfiltered. One of the most overlooked aspects of this history is that the monks who guard these books do not just read them, they live them. They climb up sheer cliff faces using ropes made of goatskin, just to reach their places of worship. A lot of people is confused about why someone would live such a hard life. But the answer lies in what an ancient monk revealed before he passed away. He spoke of a secret briefing that Jesus gave to his followers during the 40 days between his resurrection and his trip to heaven. This briefing was much longer and much more complex than the few stories found in the standard Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. See, the Ethiopian Bible contains books like the Gadla Hawaryat, which is the contendings of the apostles. It also includes the Kuphale, known as the Book of Jubilees, and the Book of Enoch. These books paint a picture of a world where the physical and spiritual realms are constantly overlapping. Nobody expected this to happen, but when modern researchers finally started looking at these texts, they realized they were looking at a treasure map for the soul. The information is so dense that it takes years for a person to even begin to understand the first layer. The crazy part is that this version of the story claims Jesus did not just appear to say goodbye. He stayed to explain the mechanics of the universe. He spoke about how the world would end and how every single person has a role to play in that final moment. Hands down. And this is the most important set of instructions ever recorded. But here's the catch. Most of these words are written in Ge'ez, a language that is almost dead. Only the highest monks can truly translate the deepest secrets. Before he died, one of these monks decided that the world was finally ready to hear a piece of the truth. He started to describe a darker set of prophecies that explain why the world feels so chaotic right now. He said that the hidden books tell of a time when the stars would align in a specific way and the hearts of men would grow cold. This was not meant to scare people, but to prepare them. What most people don't realize is that the Ethiopian church believes they are the true keepers of the original faith. They believe their 81 books are the only ones that tell the whole story. The way they see it, and the rest of the world is working with a puzzle that is missing 20% of its pieces. And that's putting it lightly. Without those missing pieces, it is impossible to see the big picture. This is why the monk's revelation is so vital. It's not just about history, it's about what is happening to us right now, in this very second. The secret of the mountains is finally coming down to the valleys. Darker prophecies of the new kingdom. So, here's the deal with the prophecies that the monk revealed from the hidden pages of the Ethiopian Bible. Most people are used to hearing about the end of the world in a way that sounds like a big fire or a giant battle in the sky. But the Ethiopian texts describe something much more quiet and much more terrifying. Jesus supposedly told his apostles about a period of time called the walk as in death. This is one of the most overlooked aspects of his post-resurrection teachings. Basically, he described a world where people would be breathing, eating, and working, but their spirits would be completely gone. He said that society would become so focused on the physical world that the connection to the divine would just snap. And get this, the crazy part is that he said this would happen right before a major shift in the earth itself. The monk explained that the texts describe a darkness that is not just a lack of light, but a lack of purpose. Many are not seeing the truth here because we are so distracted by our phones and our jobs, but the ancient books warn that this distraction is a weapon. It is meant to keep us from noticing that the environment around us is changing. The prophecies say that the weather will become like a wild animal that cannot be tamed. We are talking about storms that move in circles and heat that lasts for months at a time. The monk mentioned that the texts even talk about the weight of the air changing. It's not that simple, though, because these physical changes are just a reflection of what is happening inside the human heart. The Ethiopian Bible says that Jesus was very clear about the fact that a personal relationship with God does not need a big stone building or a man in a fancy robe. He told his followers that the true temple is the space between their ribs. This was a radical idea back then, and it is still a radical idea today. Nobody expected this to happen, but this teaching was one of the main reasons the Roman Church tried to bury these books. If people realized they didn't need the institution to find the truth, the institution would lose all its power. The monk revealed that Jesus spoke about a kingdom that is not made of gold or silver, but of a specific kind of energy. He called it the light of the third day. This energy was supposedly released into the world at the moment of the resurrection, and it is still floating around us today. See, the catch is that most of us have forgotten how to see it. We are too busy looking at the ground. The prophecies warn that if we do not learn to look up, we will be swept away by the changes that are coming. The monk spoke about a time when the water would taste like metal and the birds would forget their songs. He said these are the signs that the walk as in death has reached its peak. For starters, we have to realize that these warnings were given 2,000 years ago to a group of men sitting on a dusty mountain. Yet, they sound exactly like the news we see on our screens every morning. It makes you wonder if the monks have been right all along. They have been praying in their caves for centuries, waiting for the rest of the world to wake up and read the 81 books. Hands down, the most chilling part of the prophecy is the description of the new kingdom. It is not a place where everyone gets what they want. It is a place where everything is seen for what it truly is. There are no more secrets in that kingdom. Every thought and every action is laid bare for everyone to see, or the weight of our choices is starting to press down on the earth. Divine blueprints for the afterlife. A lot of people is confused about what happens when we finally close our eyes for the last time. Most religions give you two options, a good place or a bad place. But the Ethiopian Bible, according to the dying monk, offers a much more detailed map. What most people don't realize is that the teachings Jesus gave after he rose from the grave were like a science lesson for the spirit. He explained that we are not just one thing. We are a body, a soul, and a spirit. These three parts are held together by a kind of invisible thread. This is a key detail because it explains why we feel so conflicted sometimes. The body wants to eat and sleep, the soul wants to be loved and remembered, and the spirit wants to return to the source. The monk said that the post-resurrection briefing included instructions on how to keep these three parts in balance. He described the soul as a kind of record player that stores everything we have ever felt or done. When the body stops working, the soul carries those records into the next realm. If the records are heavy with regret or hate, the soul cannot rise. It gets stuck in the lower levels of the atmosphere. And that's putting it lightly. The monk spoke about spirits that wander for hundreds of miles across the surface of the earth because they are too heavy to leave. And get this, the crazy part is that he said these heavy spirits are what cause a lot of the sadness and anger we see in our cities today. They are like a fog that settles over the land. The spirit, on the other hand, is like a spark of pure light. It doesn't have any weight, but it can be dimmed by the soul's records. Jesus supposedly taught the apostles how to polish their spirits using the power of mercy. He said that every time you forgive someone, you are actually making your spirit brighter and lighter. This isn't just a nice idea, it's a mechanical process. See, the Ethiopian monks spend their entire lives trying to achieve this lightness. They eat very little, sometimes just a few ounces of grain a day, to keep the body from distracting the soul. They pray for hours to keep the soul from making heavy records. Nobody expected this to happen, but the monk revealed that the resurrection was the first time a human spirit was able to carry its body and soul all the way to the highest level without any loss. He said that Jesus showed us the path so that we wouldn't have to wander in the dark. It's not that simple, though, because the path is narrow and very steep. It requires a person to be honest about every single thing they have ever done. The monk said that in the higher realms, there is a kind of spiritual gravity. If you are not light enough, you simply cannot enter. Many are not seeing the truth here because they think they can just say a few words at the end and everything will be fine. But the 81 books say that the work must be done while the body is still warm. The spirit's journey begins long before the heart stops beating. Eternal covenant of the Ethiopian saints. Everyone is obsessed with the idea of the Ark of the Covenant being a weapon of mass destruction, or a magic box that zaps enemies. But the Ethiopian tradition and the specific revelations of the monk suggest something far more grounded in a forgotten science. The Ark is not a bomb. It is a physical anchor for the divine presence on earth, acting as a stabilizer for the rift in reality that Jesus created during the resurrection. This is a crucial point that most researchers miss when they try to understand why Ethiopia was chosen to guard the 81 books. The monk explained that after Jesus rose, he spoke in detail about an ancient pact made between the Creator and the inhabitants of the high mountains. This was not a symbolic agreement, but a structural one. He claimed this pact remained unbroken, even as the rest of the world drifted into spiritual and biological entropy. This historical fidelity is why the Ethiopian Church looks so alien to Western eyes. They haven't replaced the old laws with the new, they have layered them, believing that truth is a perfect circle rather than a linear progression from start to finish. The monk's explanation of the Sabbath provides a wild theory that moves beyond simple religious practice into the realm of temporal mechanics. Most of the world transitioned to Sunday worship to mark the new era, but the Ethiopians maintained the Saturday Sabbath while also embracing Sunday. According to the monk, this double Sabbath creates a chronological bridge. By honoring the original day of creation and the day of the new spirit simultaneously, and they are essentially locking their culture into a specific temporal frequency that prevents the decay of the spirit spark. There is a whispered theory among the high-level initiates that this double observance acts as a time buffer. It suggests that Ethiopia exists in a slightly different relationship with time than the rest of the planet, which would explain why its sacred traditions have remained frozen and pure for 2 millennia. Jesus allegedly praised this specific faithfulness, telling the apostles that the mountains of the south would serve as the final hard drive for his actual words when the rest of the world's data became corrupted by greed and forgetfulness. To understand the weight of this, you have to visualize the environment where these 81 books are kept. You have monks sitting in near total darkness for decades, breathing in clouds of ancient incense that contain chemical compounds designed to sharpen neural perception. The constant rhythmic chanting that fills these stone cells isn't just music, it's a form of sonic engineering. The monk said the secret meaning of the cross is actually a geometric blueprint for a 4-dimensional bridge between the ancient law of matter and the new law of the spirit. He argued that the physical shape of the cross represents the intersection where the heavy world of the biological shell meets the light world of the spark. This leads to the most practical and yet most radical aspect of the revelation: the mechanics of mercy. In this tradition, mercy is not a moral suggestion. It is a biological necessity. The monk stated that Jesus taught his followers to love their enemies because hatred generates a specific low-frequency vibration that acts like a toxin in the blood. If you harbor hate, you are literally restricting the oxygen of your spirit. You are calcifying your own shell and making it impossible for the spark to resonate. This brings us to the rumors about the monk's final moments and his terrifyingly calm smile when discussing the end of the current age. He spoke about the covenant as a promise that no matter how much the external world degrades, the light will always have a physical landing pad in the hearts of those who maintain the original frequency. He claimed that the 81 books are not static objects made of parchment and ink. They are living, bioactive artifacts. When a person with a sincere heart, which the monk defined as someone with a specific cardiovascular rhythm, reads these texts, the words begin to vibrate within their chest cavity. This isn't a metaphor. Modern researchers who have surreptitiously measured the acoustic output of these monasteries found that the specific tonal range used by the monks during their recitations induces a state of high-intensity neural coherence. It's as if the ancient Gaya's language was designed as a form of medicine to repair the damage caused by the physical world's density. Another wild theory circulating in the shadows of these peaks is that the Ark is actually a phase stabilizer for the human soul. Some believe that without the presence of the Ark and the constant maintenance of the 81 books, the human spirit would have already completely detached from the physical body, leaving us as a planet of walking corpses. The monk hinted that the briefing Jesus gave included instructions on how to use the frequency of the mountains to keep the soul anchored to the body during the upcoming planetary shift. This shift isn't an explosion, it's a change in the Earth's core vibration. As the frequency rises, the books act as a tuning fork, allowing the sparks to adjust their internal pitch so they don't shatter under the pressure of the rising light. Nobody expected it, but the biological evidence is mounting. The longevity of these monks, some of whom are rumored to be over 150 years old while maintaining the bone density of a 20-year-old, suggests they are successfully using the 81 books as a technical manual for biological optimization. They are effectively polishing their spirits by following the protocols of the double Sabbath and the specific dietary and respiratory exercises found only in the hidden texts. This suggests that the resurrection wasn't a one-time event for one man, but a demonstration of a technological path available to all who can handle the frequency. The monk's message was that the risen Christ is a living echo, a signal that is constantly broadcasting from the rift Jesus opened. We just have to tune our internal radios to the right station. The mountains of Ethiopia aren't just a scenic backdrop. They are a massive natural antenna array designed to catch that signal and keep it loud enough for the rest of humanity to hear, provided they are willing to stop the noise of their own shells long enough to listen. The 81 books are the instruction manual for that antenna, waiting for a generation that is finally desperate enough to try a different kind of science. The ancient bond is stronger than any storm the world can throw. Living echoes of the risen Christ. The monk's revelation concludes with a call to the future that vibrates with an almost terrifying urgency. He spoke about a time rapidly approaching, a threshold where the hidden knowledge of the 81 books becomes the only tool capable of preventing humanity from collapsing under its own weight. This is where we leave the realm of traditional theology and enter the landscape of the radical theories whispered within the secluded corridors of Ethiopian monasteries for centuries. These are not mere metaphors. The monks treat them as fundamental laws of a forgotten physics. One of the most persistent theories suggests that the resurrection of Jesus was not simply a biological anomaly or a divine miracle in the classic sense. Instead, it represented a violent, intentional shift in the fabric of reality itself. Proponents of this view believe that when Jesus exited the tomb, he effectively punctured a hole in the sky, a permanent rift in the three-dimensional veil. This aperture allows a specific spectrum of high-frequency energy to bleed into our world. The monks do not just pray, they act as harvesters of this energy. They believe this uncreated light is the catalyst behind their legendary longevity and their ability to heal incurable ailments. They aren't just living long lives, they are sustaining their cellular structures with a literal radiation from outside our known universe. The mystery deepens when you consider the physical nature of the monasteries. A wilder theory suggests that the monks are not just guarding ancient parchment, but protecting a sophisticated piece of prehistoric technology. This device, rumored to be buried beneath the foundations of the most remote peaks, allegedly functions as a communication array directed toward specific star systems. When you examine the topographical alignment of these holy sites, the coincidence becomes impossible to ignore. These monasteries sit on high-altitude nodes that align with startling precision to the constellations of Orion and Sirius. This suggests that the briefing Jesus provided after his return included the true coordinates of human origin. The monk hinted that we are not products of this Earth's evolutionary track. We are travelers, or perhaps refugees, who became entangled in the dense physical matter of this planet. The 81 books in this context serve as a technical manual for the trip back home, providing the exact frequencies needed to untie the knots of our biological imprisonment. The practical application of this knowledge is where the theory turns from cosmic to biological. The book supposedly contains specific instructions on breathwork and the consumption of rare flora that exists only in the oxygen-thin Ethiopian highlands. These plants are said to act as biochemical keys. They don't just nourish the body. They trigger dormant epigenetic sequences, systematically altering a person's DNA to make the physical vessel less like a solid object and more like a coherent wave of light. This isn't just spiritual talk. Researchers who have gained limited access to these traditions suspect that the monks have mastered a form of biological alchemy. They are essentially rewriting their genetic code to bridge the gap between biological life and pure spirit. Another theory, perhaps the most unsettling, concerns the walk as in death. This idea proposes that a significant portion of the modern population consists of shells, individuals who have lost their connection to the spirit spark. The monk explained that the 81 books describe a literal visual method to identify these hollow entities by observing the refraction of light in their eyes. The spirit spark is a physical manifestation, a tiny flicker of the energy leaking through that hole in the sky. If the spark is absent, the person is merely an automated biological shell, mimicking human behavior, but lacking the essential frequency of the creator. This leads to the most controversial interpretation of the end of the world. This prophecy claims that the apocalypse is not a planetary destruction, but a dimensional sifting. When the theory posits that the Earth's fundamental frequency is currently rising. As the planet's vibration increases, those who remain heavy, those consumed by the density of the material world and the lack of a spark, will eventually lose their physical cohesion. They won't die in a traditional sense. They will simply fade out of this reality because they no longer resonate with the new terrestrial baseline. However, this process is not immediate or fixed. The monk insisted that we have the power to alter our internal weight. By following the ancient protocols of mercy, love, and specific meditative disciplines, we can polish our internal resonance. This is effectively a survival strategy for a coming phase shift in the Earth's existence. Beyond the separation of souls, in some whisper about the Axumite battery, this theory claims that the Ark of the Covenant, held in Axum, is not a chest of stone tablets, but a massive capacitor designed to stabilize the rift Jesus opened. Without the constant presence of the monks and their ritualized chanting, which acts as a sonic stabilizer, the energy flowing through the hole in the sky would become chaotic and destructive. The monks are effectively technicians maintaining a planetary life support system. They believe that if the 81 books are ever fully translated and their instructions followed globally, the rift would expand until the entire world is absorbed back into the higher reality from which we originally fell. This perspective transforms every mundane interaction into a high-stakes encounter. When you walk down a crowded street, you are no longer looking at neighbors or strangers. You are looking for the spark. You are assessing the density of the world around you. The monk's final message, while heavy with these radical possibilities, remained rooted in hope. He described the risen Christ not as a historical figure to be worshipped, but as a living, breathing echo that permeates the silence of the mountains. This echo is a signal, a homing beacon that anyone can hear if they manage to quiet the noise of their biological shell. The mountains of Ethiopia stand as the ultimate laboratory and fortress, holding the 81 books as a testament to a truth that the rest of the world is finally starting to remember. We are not from here, and the way out has been written down for 2,000 years. What if the secret to the future has been hidden in the past all along? Could you be one of the sparks the ancient monks were waiting for? Tell us what you think in the comments, hit the like button if this blew your mind, and subscribe to join us as we uncover more lost secrets.